Welcome to the ExecMBA podcast. I'm your host, Brett Twitty, and you are listening to a new episode. On this episode of the podcast, I'm excited to share my recent conversation with Ann Lowe. Ann is a second-year student in our Executive MBA class of 2022, and she and I recently connected to talk more about her story, her background, how she decided to pursue an MBA, how she decided now was the right time to go back to school, what led her to Darden, her experience recently launching her LLC, and so much more. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. So without further ado, here's my interview with Ann Lowe. Ann, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
It's great to have you here. Happy holidays. How's everything going?
Yeah, you too. Good. It's always a crazy time of year, I suppose. This particular quarter is, straddles Thanksgiving, and then we've got finals here in December. So we're getting ready to roll into quarter 8 finals, which is exciting. Can't believe it.
So I'm trying to do this in my head. I think you have strategy right now, right?
I have strategy, correct. That's a core class. We've got marketing too. And then otherwise it's electives. And I loaded up this quarter actually. So I have valuations, which is like another finance class. And then I'm doing an independent study with Will Payne, another, classmate of mine. We're working on some Southwest Virginia economic revitalization projects. And then we've got Wicked Problems. So I have 5 classes this quarter, which is a lot. So we're in the home stretch though. Well, it'll be fine.
That's right. As I understand from talking with some of your classmates, y'all have already applied to graduate, which is one step closer to graduation.
Yeah, I actually can't believe it. I mean, everybody said, this program will go by so fast. And to be fair, that's partially why I picked it. I looked at it like, hey, this is 20-21 months. Let's do this. But in execution, it just flies. So it seems like it was just last spring. And now here we are and getting ready to enter the 9th quarter of 10, which is nuts. So it's very bittersweet though. You think you're excited to graduate and feel like a little bit of senioritis, but at the same time, don't really want it to end. So I guess that's how school goes usually though, right?
Well, ideally that's how it goes. You want people to feel kind of sad to see this opportunity conclude. In that, I think what I've heard from past executive MBA students is, that you're not going to have the opportunity to come together on a regular basis with 130 plus classmates to talk about things, to be in a classroom, to learn in the same kind of way that you have been engaged in the past, say 21 months or so. Yeah,
for sure. And I think our class, I guess the silver lining of doing it during COVID is a lot of our friendships and relationships all had to happen via Zoom and phone calls and things anyway. So by the time we actually all 130 of us were there together, we've had a year under our belt of getting to know one another. So I think there's some, I don't know, I guess what I'm saying is it'll probably help us maintain all those connections because we didn't get used to the dynamic straight out of the gate of we only see these folks, in Roslyn once a month. I think we've had to get pretty creative to build relationships and whatnot. And they seem, we all went through this crazy time together, the crazy COVID survival. So I think there's something there, like we seem to be particularly supportive of each other, I think, if that makes any sense. I guess time will tell.
Well, I was with your class in June or so when you had the weekend in Charlottesville, and that was fun to be there with y'all. I think that was, I don't know about for you, but certainly the first large group social gathering I had done with anyone who was not in my family, so it was fun. It was fun to be there and to be part of that. But it hit me, I think it was August, that first weekend residency when your class had resumed normal operations. That was the first time your full class had been together as a class for a residency. Because up until that point, you've been virtual or hybrid, all these kinds of options. So
kind
of amazing.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I was one of the few. There was a small crew of us that came to Roslyn every residency weekend anyway. And the funny part about the crew that was there, the common thread was we all had little kids. And so we needed to get out of our homes for a weekend residency. And, I remember one of them, I want to say it was November. It was either November or December. last fall when we were supposed to go down to Charlottesville. But of course, COVID spiked last fall and everything needed to take a pause. And a few of us, begged Mama Maz and Callie, can we please still go to Roslyn? And there were about 3 of us there. So just because for us to focus and do an OGR, we just kind of need to get out of our homes. So it's interesting because this kind of crew of us that were used to going to Roslyn when we had the option to do hybrid, had gotten sort of used to we had run of the mill of the place. We all had our own private rooms and whatnot. And then once people started showing up in Roslyn, we kind of thought like, hey, what are you doing here? So, it was definitely great once everybody was back. I think the first one, I guess you're right. It was August and it was mandatory, everybody back. I only missed one in Roslyn in person, and it was in July, but people were starting to show up quite a bit more. And I had major FOMO. I was on Zoom for that OGR. I was out in Montana because we try to spend summers out there. That's all it took for me to realize, like, I got to get back to Roslyn pronto. So I came back for the others and have been there ever since. But yeah, you're right. No, it's funny too when you've built a friendship over Zoom, and then kind of the interesting human dynamic of then meeting somebody in person, because you know who they are, and it's not like our normal, human condition where you walk up and introduce yourself because you already know the person, but this is the first time you see them. So the funniest part for us was everybody's who you think they are. It's just nobody knows how tall people are. I'm only 5'4", and I got a lot of feedback actually in Charlottesville, because you're right, that was the first place I saw a lot of folks in person, and people thought I was like 5'10". I don't know how to take that. I guess it must, I must have a booming personality, right? But yeah. But that was the one thing that threw a lot of us off is the height of people, because you seem to know their personalities. You obviously know what they look like and have a general understanding of a build from Zoom, but height was the one, variable. So interesting COVID times.
It's curious to think about whatever personality height correlation people must be making in their mind to say, well, Ann, she's pushing 6 feet for sure.
Right.
So I would take it as a compliment.
I'll take that as a compliment. Right. And of course, I met you pre-COVID, right before the world was going to shoot down. I think it was February of 2020. I went to one of the dinners, kind of the prospective student dinners. So you would have known I was not 5'10" from the get-go, but yeah, it's pretty funny.
Well, tell us a little bit more of your story. So we've talked about where you are in the program right now, but take us back a ways. What have you done? Where are you from personally, but also academically and professionally? What's your background?
Yeah, no problem. Okay. Yeah, that's fun. So I'm originally from out west. I grew up in Spokane, Washington, which is in Eastern Washington. And then I went to college in Montana at Montana State. And so I have an engineering degree from MSU. And I'm a Western gal, but my husband originally was in the Air Force. So we moved out to Washington, D.C. in 2005. And it kind of was just like, hey, let's go to the East Coast and do a little adventure. He didn't intend to stay in the military for life. And yeah, so we thought it was going to be like a 2-year gig. Well, here we are, it's 16 years later, we're still here. So I've managed to kind of balance. My husband and I both have fairly demanding careers. He's since getting out of the military. He works for the government. So we've had to figure out how to do that balance of both jobs. I've helped run a consulting firm, really is what I do. So I took my industrial engineering degree and I parlayed it into kind of the management consulting space. So I've been doing management consulting most of all my career. So I landed at a little company here in DC, does government contracting, but it was a niche company, primarily made of industrial engineers. So fast forward, 15 years, it was like a startup feel. When I started, there were 20 people. We grew it. It's about 150 now. I run like a third of the company. And I just kind of always, though, I got kind of caught up. It was fun growing a company. I was in my late 20s, early 30s. All the rest of my colleagues were too, and we're building this thing. And you just get kind of caught up. And in the back of my mind, I always thought, like, I really want to go to grad school, but it just never made sense timing wise. I'm busy building this company. My husband and I always think we're going to move back west, and then I had I'm in my 30s and I have kids. So I had kid number one in 2012, and the second one in 2015. So I just could never really figure out when it made sense. And I always, as I got older, had this desire, like I really want an MBA, and especially career-wise, as I was growing and building and running a business portfolio, I almost had this insecurity that like, I'm kind of a fraud. I don't have the MBA, which is sort of silly. And a lot of people, to be fair, once I got pretty serious considering going to Darden, I had a lot of feedback thinking like, you don't need an MBA. Like, why do you need an MBA now? You're not going to make more money. You're already running stuff, but I just knew I had this like burning desire, like something's missing, and I want to go do it. So I finally did. And I'm really glad that I did. Yeah.
What about Darden resonated with you? How did this program in particular end up on your radar?
Yeah, well, to be fair, yep, I often would kind of think this, woe is me, I missed the boat. I really wanted to go to get an MBA, and PS, I want to go to a top school. Like I didn't want to do an online MBA, and there's, every school under the sun offers an MBA. And when I realized that Darden was in Roslyn, which is down the street from me, I live here in Arlington. It was 1 weekend a month. And then, obviously there's plenty of classes during the week, but those are on Zoom and a little bit more, flexible. That's where it made it seem feasible. So the fact that it's like down the street, 1 weekend a month, a lot of other executive programs, almost every executive program I considered was 2 weekends a month. And I've got 2 kids that are elementary school age. My husband travels a ton for work, and it just wasn't, there was no way. And I thought like I could probably bite off 20 months of a 1 weekend a month commitment. So that was the big thing. It was really more like convenience given my lifestyle. But then of course the added bonus is Darden checked the box on a top school, like flirts with the top 10, definitely top 15, depending on, which ranking we look at. And I really was into the case study method, like especially at this point in my, I guess, life and career. I've lived a fair amount of life. I've been working for 18 years. So I didn't really want to learn from a book and lecture. So the case study concept really resonated. I thought it would be a little bit more of a valuable experience. So yeah, that was it. It was the type of, it was case study, interesting. And I'd heard quite a bit about the Darden culture and community, and just like the collaborative, supportive nature of it all, how like it's kind of the whole person, we need to be good humans, not just like savvy, shrewd business folks. The location and the convenience factor of like 1 weekend a month. And yeah, I guess, and the case, yeah, I think it's a case study. That's right. Yeah.
So you come to Darden, you're a first year student. What was that process like of being back in school?
All right. So yeah, a lot. It's funny to put myself back in that place because when I applied to Darden, the world was shutting down from COVID, right? And so there's a lot of unknowns, right? So it was spring of 2020, and yet again, here I probably put this desire to get an MBA up on a pedestal, but I finally had convinced my family, convinced my employer, convinced everybody, like, okay, it's time, I can do this. It's a 20-month program. And then it looked like it was out of reach again, like, oh no, the world's shutting down. So, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't disappointed that our LR1 had to be virtual. 100% understand for like public health reasons, but I think we were all really crossing our fingers, hoping, and just like everybody has been throughout this whole COVID journey, that things would be fine and we could do that in person. So that was virtual. It's funny because that was my first foray back into being a student for the first time in close to 20 years. And for LR1, we've all diligently read every single word of every single case and have everything ready prepared because it's your first impressions and whatnot. So LR1 was fun. It was interesting. It was tough to do online. But then once I launched in the first quarter, I was so used to being this like star student as an undergrad, and it had been a long time, and just trying to figure out how to balance studying with running, keeping my full-time job afloat. And then I had the added bonus of my kids that are in elementary school. that we're not in school, right? So it's virtual school. So we had a lot to balance and a lot of sleep deprivation. And I will say, like, that first quarter, it was a bit of a rude awakening. Like, I had, what did we have that first quarter? We had DA, econ, and I think PAC maybe, right? So PAC is great because it really forces you to do some self-reflection, kind of why am I here and what do I want to be when I grow up? But admittedly, econ, I'd never taken an econ class in my life. I had to take, a engineering econ class probably in like 2001. That's just like the basics. And I was struggling in econ, and it was a bit of a humbling experience, But the cool thing about Darden is you phone a friend, right? You find some friends who understand it. You get on Zoom, you get a few tutoring sessions, and then I was on track and I did fine in that class. But yeah, there was definitely this panic at the beginning, like, holy cow, I'm not going to be able to do this. I think I got a 6 out of 10 on the first quiz, and that doesn't happen, So I thought, like, this is going to be a long road, but quickly, one quarter in, I figured out the groove. And I think the other thing about anything you do new in life, like a new job, new town, whatever, there's like information overload at first. And so you don't know what you need to filter out and what actually is important. So I think it took about a quarter to sort that out. And then it's been pretty smooth sailing, ever since.
Well, I appreciate your noting that it felt like a lot early on. It's a common theme here on the podcast. And it sounds like after a quarter or so, you started to feel settled. When did it really click in for you that you had a rhythm, you had a schedule, you kind of figured out how to be an executive MBA student? I think
it really clicked fourth quarter, to be fair. So quarter one was a bit of a rude awakening. Second quarter, like, okay, all right, I got it. I can do this. The third quarter is just, notoriously in this program is the hardest quarter of the program. So you've got an accounting class then, gosh, I can't remember. There's 2 quant classes in Q3. I can't remember. And it's a really short quarter. I think it's 5 or 6 weeks or something. And so that quarter, I remember it was like the deep, dark winter, and I just didn't see my family. I'd just be upstairs on my laptop trying to get go through quarter 3. So it's like almost like once you survive Q3, you're in Q4 and you've got to figure it out. So Q4 and beyond has been not stressful, enjoyable. Yes, there's some difficult content, and yes, it still takes a fair amount of effort. But I think that was really when I know what I'm doing. I know the level of effort. You understand the grading, how grades work. You understand how participation works. I think that's a tricky thing to figure out. Particularly like there's this almost sort of feeling of pressure that you need to participate to get points. But there's also the peer pressure, like don't waste airtime saying something useless just to get points, And so you figure all that out. And I think the fourth quarter was really when it started. Yeah. Smooth sailing from then on out. I say that, and here I am in the 8th quarter with 5 classes. Talk to me in a couple of weeks after I get through these finals. So there might've been a blip in quarter 8, But yeah.
What I hear from a lot of people is there's a difference between participation and contribution.
There we go.
So contribution, adding to the conversation, participation may just actually be speaking. Maybe.
Correct. That's I like that. That's what they should start calling them, contribution points. I like this. That's it.
Well, here you are.
Vote for each other or who contributed the most. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So here you are. Now you're in the 2nd year of the program. Has 2nd year felt different than 1st year in any kind of way?
Yeah. And I think we, again, are a unique class because you've got the whole COVID element, right? So 2nd year definitely feels different because we all are finally together in person versus before it was, hybrid, optional, that kind of thing. So that put that on the shelf because that's its own thing. Of course, it feels different because we're all together. But I think otherwise, the combination of feeling like you're in the groove. So there's not really this sense of panic and worry, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fail this class. There may be a class that I'm not doing hot in, but I know A, I'm not going to fail it. And B, like I've got, kind of the tricks and tips, like get a hold of a professor or again, like phone a friend, that kind of thing. So you're in the groove. But then I think the third big thing about the 2nd year that feels different is the fact that we have so many more electives. So I've noticed that the electives I've chosen so far. I mean, we're not that far into the electives, but you can tell, I'm a little more engaged in those classes in terms of figuring out how to go apply it tomorrow at work. I took a negotiations class in, I think that was Q7, and I took entrepreneurial thinking in Q7. Both of those incredibly relevant real-time courses, because that's when I was in process of sort of changing the structure of my current job, like leaving my current job in the full-time capacity that I've been in, running a portfolio and becoming like an hourly part-time consultant back to them, and then starting my own LLC. So I use negotiations real time to negotiate my hourly rate and the terms of my employment. And then I also use the entrepreneurship class real time to kind of set up what would this LLC, I started my own little consulting firm. It's just a one-person shop for now, how to do it. So it was really rewarding, I guess, to be able to apply classes so quickly, so that's what I'm getting out of these electives, like the fact that you can kind of pick and choose what is going to be most relevant to you. And I was already, I guess, rewarded with the ability to apply them.
So I'm curious about your career goals. Did you come to Darden with the idea that, I think I might want to start my own thing? Or is that something that occurred to you once you got here?
Great question. So I think for the past probably 5-ish years of my career, I've been kind of grappling with this. Am I an entrepreneur? Like, do I want to break out and start my own thing? So effectively at my company, I've been running my own business unit for, over a decade. And I always kind of had this, there was nowhere for me to go. I couldn't get promoted any higher. I could grow it more, but, I always sort of had this question in the back of my mind, like, should I just break off and do this myself? But I didn't really know how, I wasn't really sure, and I was comfortable, and I get paid a bunch of money. And so when I entered Darden, the PAC class in the beginning, we have to define yourself as a switcher, an entrepreneur, or a climber. I knew I wasn't a climber. There was nowhere to climb. And I really grappled with, am I a switcher or an entrepreneur? Because I knew in my heart of hearts that it was time for some sort of career pivot. Like, I'd been doing the same thing for a long time. I do it fairly well, but I felt like not just for myself, like I thought I needed a different challenge. I kind of felt I also needed to get out of the way and let my second tier leaders lead as well, because it's almost a glass ceiling for them. So I knew I needed to pivot, and I wasn't quite sure what. So I went through PAC, and I kind of straddled the line between switcher and entrepreneur. And then finally, this summer, I think Darden just kind of helped give me that courage and confidence. Maybe I think I was in the same industry for so long, around the same types of folks. And I think maybe a year at Darden didn't have to be a year, could have been 6 months, 9 months, but just being exposed to other folks and other industries, and still understanding I guess I'm okay at this stuff, and I could probably translate these skills into different industries and whatnot. It was sort of the catalyst that kicked me out the door. And then it helped that you meet so many interesting people in school that have interesting backgrounds and have done different stuff. It wasn't actually a Darden class that taught me how to start my own company. The actual nuts and bolts of how to do it. It was classmates who have started LLCs. And so, everyone's so willing to help each other. I just learned, okay, get on the website, pay $100 to the state of Virginia, pick a name, and there's your LLC. So I've gone through all the, get your company set up, get your tax ID number from the IRS, go to a bank and set up a bank account, and American dream, you have your own business, So I am kind of in a weird transition year, I would say, because I did start my own consulting firm kind of for side gigs in the commercial world. Government contracting, I'm still with my old company. I've got non-compete agreements, and I don't want to violate that. I have a really good relationship with my customers and clients and former companies. So I do government consulting through them on an hourly basis. But we'll see. Once I finish school, I'm still kind of at a fork in a road, right? I'll either try to really blow out my own consulting firm and grow the business. I haven't tried that hard yet. And so far, I've just kind of stumbled into some clients via Darden connections and whatnot. So I'll either, throw a lot of energy towards that and really build it out and really run my own consulting firm. Or I can see myself like folding back into corporate America and, like some sort of like a vice president or director role. But Darden's definitely helped me kind of zero in on what I like to do, what I'm good at, and given me, I guess, like the confidence to sort of own that and understand my value and figure out like where to fold back in. Whereas before, I think I would just say, yeah, I can do that, I can do that, even if it's stuff I don't really like to do. I think now I feel like I've got more confidence to say like, yeah, I'm a really good consultant, and so I will do that. No, I won't write proposals. I don't like to, So I don't know. We'll see. So yeah, it's a good question. Like where I'm going career-wise, it's still a bit of a mystery, but at least it's fun and it's cute. My daughter, I have a 9-year-old, and it's fun. She proudly said once, and she was talking about parents and different parents that do different things for jobs, and she goes, and I can say my mommy started her own business. Like all right, well that was worth it. So, yeah.
What's the name of your LLC?
Great. Okay, good question. It's actually just an acronym, and it means multiple things. So, I have a secret French degree that I don't advertise very often because my French isn't so great these days. It was 20 years ago, and that was kind of my like fun side degree. I got an engineering degree, and then I went to France, studied abroad, that kind of thing. Anyhow, so I was trying to come up with some sort of name. I do like operational improvement type stuff, business process improvement, strategy, basically make businesses run more effectively and efficiently. So I was trying to come up with something that had to do with improve or to be better or, something like that. But I couldn't come up with anything that wasn't too cheesy. So then I thought, hey, okay, maybe I can find a Latin word or a Greek word or something. And so ultimately I settled with French. So but I didn't call it a French, it's just an acronym. So the company's name is ES Strategies, right? So the ES stands for Être Superior, it's like to be better, to be greater. But the other bonus is my kids' names are Ellie and Sam. So it happens to be their initials too. So my company's ES Strategies. I don't have a website yet. I'll get there. I paid for the domain. So yeah.
So it works on multiple levels. And
it works on multiple levels.
One of the things that was interesting, so we've had Will Payne on the podcast a couple times. Will both wanted to tell his story and then to talk about the work that he's doing, leading the Entrepreneurship Club. And all of a sudden, I'm reading an email from the Baden Institute about a group of students who are presenting on behalf of Appalachian Grains at the recent Entrepreneurship Cup, or what at UVA is called the E-Cup. And I see your name there. And I also see Michelle Cobb listed there, your classmate, and Will. And I have to admit, Ann, I was not expecting to see your name there as part of all of that. I was surprised in like the best possible way. And so How did you get involved with Appalachian Grains, and maybe even at a higher level? One, what is Appalachian Grains? And then two, how did you get involved with it?
Oh, for sure. So how I got involved with Appalachian Grains. So Will, Will was in my learning team, which is obviously a cool Darden, institution where, when you start school, you put in pods of like 6 folks. So Will and I were the same learning team, and it just hit it off from the get-go. We've just been pals, we're the same age. We kind of banter back and forth. We have completely different backgrounds. Academically, our brains work totally differently. But we definitely like hit it off from the get-go at the beginning of the program. So really throughout the first year of Darden, we always joked that like someday I'd come work for Will. Well, the someday finally came. So as part of me finally breaking off and starting my LLC, the whole intent was to plug in and be kind of Will's strategic sidekick. I think, throughout the year, we discovered really how different our brains worked. Like I am a more quantitative, structured, operations type thinker. Will is, big picture. He's very politically connected. He understands the state of Virginia very well. So we just thought we'd make a good team. He has so much going on. He's got a whole series of projects going on down in Southwest Virginia that many are funded by or seed funding from grants. And then he's looking to get sponsorship from, corporations and just kickstart some business down in Southwest Virginia to kind of revitalize the economy down there. So Appalachian Grains specifically is one of those like projects that's just getting off the ground. Really cool, I think. So the whole concept here is you've got all this farmland in Virginia, and much of this original funding came from the Tobacco Commission. So, that's like farmland that used to be tobacco. What can we do to incentivize farmers and kind of turn this thing around? So originally he had a little bit of funding from that just to get the idea going. But what the intent of Appalachian Grains is there's so many craft breweries in Virginia these days. It's the new hip trend. There's I think over 200 craft breweries in Virginia. To make beer, you need barley, right? So currently the brewers in Virginia are having to import their barley. A lot of it's from Europe, Canada, and the Midwest. So the idea behind Appalachian Grains is, why can't we grow local barley, promote the economy down there, get farmers? It's a winter crop. So I'm learning a bunch about, agriculture. So it's a winter crop, so you can kind of jam it between, like your soybean or corn crops that would happen in the spring and summer. And then that way the breweries don't have to import their barley from elsewhere. So that where my brain works is, I'm a process kind of operations person. And so the way I understand it is, farmers grow barley then goes to a grain terminal to be cleaned and prepped and whatnot. Then it goes to a maltster. The maltster is what turns it into bags of that malted barley that goes to the brewery, and the brewers can then use. So Appalachian Grains kind of sits in the middle between the farmers and the maltsters. So the idea is get more farmers. We're just trying to get a little bit of the market share. So the stat that we're using is, state of Virginia imports like 400,000 bushels of barley to make all the beer for those craft breweries. We just want to get like a quarter of that to come out of Virginia farms. So the idea is work with farmers, using a little bit of grant money, work with farmers to get them going on barley. And then Appalachian Grains would have the contract between the farmers and the maltsters to ensure that the grain is high quality. So effectively, Appalachian Grains buys the grain from the farmer and then sells it to the maltster. But we would try to eliminate the risk between maltster and farmer by ensuring that the grain meets the quality standards. That's the tricky thing about barley. You have to run it through a test and make sure that it meets quality standards before brewers are going to want to use it. So anyway, that's Appalachian Grains. Super cool. I'm really, proud to be helping Will out with it. And he's got a lot of other cool projects we're working on down there too.
So Appalachian Grains competed recently in the E-Cup, as mentioned. Mm-hmm. What was that experience like? We haven't had a chance to talk too much about that on the podcast
E-Cup.
here.
E-Cup was really great. I thought it's a typical, I think, executive MBA story, right? So us execs are busy working full-time professionals, and we sort of sometimes don't pay attention to the details. So we found out, hey, we're in the E-Cup. That's great. And, we got an email and it said the E-Cup will be 5 to 7 p.m. on a Wednesday. I read immediately straight out of the gate, Michelle and I, it said something about Charlottesville, but we just assume everything's also on Zoom. And so it's Michelle, Will, and I. Michelle and I straight out of the gate are like, I can't go to Charlottesville on Wednesday, but send me the Zoom link. And then, also specifically try to get us the 6 o'clock slot, because I've got stuff from 5 to 7, that kind of thing. And then we soon find out like, oh, no, this is an in-person deal in Charlottesville. And then we thought, okay, well, Will's got it. And then, time passes and we see more details come out and we see the list of folks that are competing. We realize this is actually like a little bit more of a competitive thing than we think. So Michelle and I scrambled to figure out, like, can either of us join Will in Charlottesville? So I called in favors to my husband, like, hey, can you take our daughter to gymnastics? Line up the Wednesday evening schedule for him. Like, can you pick them up at school? Take him to, whatever. And made it work. So I joined in Charlottesville, met Will there. Funny thing is, again, I think like executive MBAs, like we've been used to working for a while. So there's other MBAs, residential MBAs, and then of course undergrads. Anybody compete at UVA. And Will and I kind of look like Congress people when we walked in, because it's Charlottesville and I live up in DC. I'm in a full up black suit and heels. Will's in his power suit. It was a little bit more of a laid back affair than we anticipated, but you can never, it's always better to overdress, right? So we were nervous. I mean, you're always nervous when you're competing. It was effectively like Shark Tank. They had three, judges sitting at the table. We'd had to submit a 5-minute video ahead of time. And they played the video, and then we stood up and answered questions to the panel. So it was a 5-minute video, and then there was a 5-minute timer to answer questions, the Shark Tank panel questions. And so, yeah, I mean, we were definitely nervous, and that, oh gosh, we better be one of the winners here. And they had several winners. It wasn't like a winner take all thing, but super fun. I would totally do it again. It was fun talking to some of the undergrads. There's a lot of smart kids down at UVA, and they had some really cool ideas. I guess from my engineering background, a lot of them, some of them in our I can't remember what they called them. They had different branches. Ours was social entrepreneurship. I think there was some other competitions that were like business to business or business to consumer. So ours was social entrepreneurship, and a lot of these other guys had some really cool ideas, and it was like engineering, computer science type ideas. So I was pretty impressed with the different competitors.
Was it helpful to you to be in that environment, talking about the idea, the concept, what Appalachian Grains is about?
Yeah, absolutely. I think whenever you have to pitch a concept, especially when there's a time frame on it, a short, you've got 2 minutes to pitch your concept or 5 minutes, it just forces you to sharpen your message. And then, also fielding the questions from the judges. Yeah, I mean, I think anybody who has any sort of entrepreneurial concept should do that, even if it's just pitching it to their family and friends. But the more you speak about it, I think the more concise you get with the explanation, you get the point across a little bit better. Because a lot of folks, I think when you have an entrepreneurial idea, it's in your brain, it's all baked off. But you need to figure out a way to concisely communicate your idea and get support for it. So, yeah, so I think that was a very, very valuable experience in that regard.
Well, what are you looking forward to in the months to come? You've got a couple quarters left. You got LR2, then of course graduation. What are you excited about?
Right. I mean, probably all of the above. I'm excited, hopefully. So I'm slated to do a global residency. As you know, a lot of those have had to get cut short given the COVID situation. I'm supposed to go to Italy in February. Fingers crossed. Come on, Omicron, stay at bay. I'm also slated to do a week in San Francisco with Professor Raj, for a marketing class. So I'm looking forward to both of those, just to I think it's important to get out and, experience other parts of the country and world a bit as much as we can, given the current conditions. So looking forward to that. I'm really looking forward to electives. Q9 and Q10 is primarily electives, and the ones that I've got slated, I'm fairly interested in. So I'm looking forward to those classes. LR2 should be fun. We didn't have LR1, so I think we're all really looking forward to being in Charlottesville together. And we will be much less stressed than LR1 would have been, since it's the final road. And then I think just professionally, like I said, it's just kind of a transition year. I'm kind of living day to day. Everything's like bright and new. Like today, I think I will do my hourly old job, Tomorrow, I think I will do some work for Appalachian Grains or for Squabble State, which is a cidery down in Southwest Virginia. We're trying to get started. So it's kind of fun to day by day kind of pick my poison. I know that's not my long-term career. Like I tend to thrive in like a leadership role, and I'm an individual contributor right now, but it's been kind of fun to go back to my roots. So I'm looking forward to, I'm giving myself till the fall to really pick a path. Like, am I gonna go for broke and build out this consulting firm, or do I want to go back into corporate America and snag like a VP role somewhere, So all things are good. Like the sun is shining, in the spring. I'm looking forward to all what's next. So yeah.
And you're right. I mean, LR1 for your class was virtual, so I have no doubt that the idea of being together as a group in Charlottesville for that week is exciting. And it's always like, to your point where we started this conversation, sort of bittersweet aspect of where you are in the program right now, that week is always, definitely has that quality to it. This is the end. This is the last academic activity. Last time we'll be together as a class, but also has like a really great, like, last week of school vibe to it as well.
Oh, yeah.
Like everybody's much looser, faculty, staff included. So it's great.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that'll be fun. It'll be fun. Yeah, it's been weird, as these OGRs fly by. Because you're busy and you're on all day, and I have sort of started to feel them slipping away. And, you know, there's so many people you've built relationships with, and you might not have them in your class anymore because we're all in electives, you know, we're all spread out. So you'll see them in passing thinking like, oh, I'm going to talk to, you know, so-and-so later. And then it just all happens and you miss the opportunity to chat with them and whatnot. So LR2 should be fun. I think there'll be more opportunities to connect with folks. And then from then it's intentional in afterwards, right? Yeah, maintain the relationships beyond. So
absolutely. Yep. Well, same last question for you that we ask of all of our guests here on the podcast. I wonder if you have a piece of advice, a tip you would share with our prospective student listeners.
Oh, sure. So I think, gosh, you know, my perspective, I come from, I mean, I can't pretend who I am. I'm a mom. I am, you know, in my 40s. I have a super busy job. I have a husband who works for the State Department who's gone all the time. I always wanted an MBA. And I think my advice is if you're considering it and it seems like an overwhelming thing, you're not going to be able to fit in. I think like, you know, you have to just take the leap and do it because it's not going to get any easier or better. And I think human beings, we always figure out a way to make more time. Like stuff gets pushed around and reprioritized and whatnot. I mean, it's literally 20 months or 21 months, depending on how you count it. And sure, I've done, and I think the executive program is so supportive and dare I say flexible. I mean, they're not gonna, I mean, it's rigorous, but you know, if you have a certain situation, like the professors and the program team are willing to kind of flex and deal with you. I mean, I have done classes from the gymnastics studio. You know, I sit in my car parked at soccer practice, studying or doing a problem set. You know, I was in the back of my friend's car, a 3-row car. We had 6 kids. Or no, I guess we had 3 kids, 3 adults going somewhere for the weekend. And I was in the very back, headphones on, watching finance videos. You know, you figure it out. And it might be a little crazy, but I think in the end, I'm just so glad I did it. It was just this chip on my shoulder I always had. Like, I want an MBA. I can't figure out how to do it. The timing's not right. Like, the timing's never really perfect, but just, I would say, if you're, you know, panicked about how am I going to find the time to do it, just trust that you'll figure it out. Might require some caffeine, but you'll figure it out.
Well, I appreciate the advice. You're right. You know, sometimes you just have to take the plunge and recognize that, you know, whenever you do something like this, you can always point to someone in your class that has less on their plate, you know, fewer commitments, fewer things competing for their time. But you can always find someone who has more too.
Absolutely.
Like, yep. How is that person doing it? And so there's a way. There's a way.
There's a way. Yep. And, you know, I admit I don't really have many regrets, but there has been, I think FOMO is the better way to say it. Like, there are so many ways to get involved at Darden, and that information is coming at you all the time. And I haven't been able to partake in as many of those, just given my family situation and whatnot. And so that's the only thing is I wish I would have been able to do more of fill in the blank thing. There's so many speakers or, you know, clubs and things like that. And I haven't been able to jump in those, but that's just my life situation. But to the moms who want an MBA, you can do it. You can do it, you know, and all the people who have fewer commitments, you can do it too. And you can also do all these extracurricular things. So yeah, doable.
Well, Ann, thank you so much for your time today. It's a pleasure catching up with you. Congratulations on all the exciting developments in your life, launching your own LLC, all the work with Appalachian Grains and the work you're doing with Will and Michelle. And gosh, we look forward to hearing more.
Thank you. Yes, hopefully. We'll see, right? Yeah. No, thank you. I appreciate it. It's been lovely to see you again.
And that was my interview with Ann Lowe, a second-year student in our Executive MBA class of 2022. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, anything you'd like for us to cover here on the podcast, we're all ears. We can be reached at exec, that's EXEC, MBA at darden.virginia.edu. Until next time, stay safe, be well, and thanks for listening.